Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to another episode of Red Pill Religion Podcast. At Red Pill Religion, we are dedicated to the proposition that spirituality and belief in the supernatural is normal and healthy and rational in human males, also in human females, children and adults alike. So remember this, religious people are normal and they are a permanent part of your society. You will die surrounded by religious people, so you might want to learn to get along with them. Please support our work on redpillreligion.com, which still redirects to escapingatheism.com, where you can give us your financial or spiritual support via Bitcoin or PayPal. We're still working on maker support. We've just got to get that bank account open, and we'll be done. Please support our work on redpillreligion.com. Please tell your friends or enemies. Please give us a like and a subscribe. We are here to talk about red pill issues generally. Now, once again, we're going to be talking tonight about the ludicrous hate cult on YouTube that is YouTube atheism. And tonight, what we're going to be looking at is yet another repeat of the standard atheist Hitler was a Christian trope. Links are in the low bar, by the way. Hitler was a Christian trope by Essence of Thought. Now, pre-show, before we got into it, I had some people say I was too mean to, who was I mean to? Zone Star? I'm not sure I actually was, but some people were saying I was too mean to him. But honestly, even worse than Zonstar, I will have to admit, is this Essence of Thought video. This Essence of Thought video repeating the classic, easily debunked, easily skewered, easily mocked and laughed at Hitler was a Christian trope. We've gone ahead and linked it in the low bar, and we're going to look at parts of it at the end. In the low bar, I'm going to do my best to let other members of the team talk. We'll see if I can restrain myself. But I have a few references that are in the low bar that I want people to listen to. First off, I'm going to mention that Hitler was a Christian or Hitler was a Catholic is a favored trope of the atheist cult movement, and it is a cult movement. It is also very much a hate movement dedicated to pseudoscience and pseudo-history, and we're going to be looking at some fake pseudo-history from Essence of Thought tonight. Books to look at if you're genuinely interested, and by the way, I don't believe either Essence of Thought or his audience are genuinely interested, because I think they're all a bunch of hate-mongering bigots, and I really do mean that, hate-mongering bigots peddling pseudoscience and pseudo-history. And by the way, let me repeat it. I'm not just saying Essence of Thought is bad. I'm saying that if you're a fan of Essence of Thought, or if you are giving money to Essence of Thought, you are just as slimy, just as horrible a human being, just as despicable, just as low. And I'm going to repeat again, this is low-life, pig-ignorant, hate propaganda. It's not even pig. Pig-ignorant just assumes... Actually, calling it pig-ignorant just assumes that he's, stubbornly ignorant. In fact, I'm going to say that I think this man knows that he's lying and doesn't care. Books to look at before we get into are The Myth of Hitler's Pope by...
I have one to add.
I haven't even introduced you yet, but okay, I'm going to start with The Myth of Hitler's Pope by Rabbi David G. Dalen, who's defending the Pope from charges of anti-Semitism. What's your favorite book, sir?
My favorite book, if you go on Amazon and look,
yeah, what is it? Spit it out.
It's called Supernatural History of Nazism, something like that. And
I'll try and get this into the low. You're talking about Nazis in the occult?
Yeah, Supernatural History of the Nazis or something like that. And it is by an academic. It is published by an academic publishing house. And what's really interesting about it, it actually traces occult elements, including Helena Blavatsky and her influence on Hitler.
There is no question to anybody who looks into it that Satanism, occultism, witchcraft. I'm sorry, our friend Autumn Storm never wants us to use the witchcraft because he thinks his group is the authentic witches. But whatever, I mean, occultism, witchcraft, paganism was all over the Nazi regime. So it's worth knowing that. The myth of Hitler's Pope completely skewers this idea. By the way, here's another one by Borden Painter, a historian I've interviewed, one of the best, one of the most distinguished in the world. Mussolini's Rome, rebuilding the Eternal City, which, amongst other things, goes into the horrible fascist persecution of Christians, including Catholics. Also might want to look into his book, The New Atheist Denial of History. But we're about to spend a while listening to this man lie about this man, Essence of Thought. This man, Essence of Thought, we're going to listen to a bunch of him lying about history and lying about history to grind only one possible axe: his complete contempt and hatred of Christians and Jews, but definitely a hatred for Jews or for Christians. There's no difference between this man and a member of the KKK. There's no difference between this man and a communist. There's no difference between this man and a Nazi, because he lies about history and lies about innocent people, just like all of the above did. And I truly think that this man and his fans, if you were seeing Christians being strung up on trees, their children tortured, and their churches burned down, this man would think it was ultimately for the best, or certainly his fans would be, because this is just how hateful this guy is. Now, I've put these all on the low bar, but I'm going to mention a few things. Maximilian Mary Kolbe, the real one, the saint, was murdered at Auschwitz. He was in Auschwitz for the crime of being a Catholic priest running a war hospital, and he was neutral on the war. He was killed by the godless Christian-hating atheists, which is exactly what the Nazis were. I want to mention that in addition to Catholics, many Protestants, especially Lutherans, like Martin Niemöller, were viciously tortured and killed by the Nazi regime for the crime of being faithful Lutheran Christians. Nazis persecuted and imprisoned quite a few Catholic clergy, priests, etc. Max Kolbe was just one of them, murdered. It's important to note the history that the Nazi Party actually, these are all things, these are references you can look up too. The Nazi Party was very explicitly anti-Christian through most of its existence. When Hitler rose to power in the early 1920s, he claimed to be a Christian and claimed to be doing God's work. Once he had absolute power, he completely turned against Christians. And actually began implementing something called positive Christianity, which was basically erasing most of Christianity and trying to make Jesus a Nazi, which didn't work. And people like Martin Niemöller and Maximilian Mary Kolbe and a whole lot of others were killed because they would not adopt Nazi positive Christianity. And positive Christianity has a mirror in fake forms of Buddhism that the Chinese invented, that the Maoist communist Chinese invented to replace traditional Buddhism, which is spiritual. It's not unusual for horrible, oppressive atheist regimes to create fake atheist versions of a religion, just like that's what secular Buddhism is. That's what secular Buddhism is, and that's all Nazi positive Christianity ever amounted to. It's important to note historically that by the early 1930s, Hitler, the Catholic Church excommunicated not just Hitler, but declared that anybody who was a member of the Nazi Party was automatically excommunicated from the Catholic Church. If you were a Nazi, you didn't get in. Even if you were a low-level party member whose only job was to, take tickets at the door of the Nazi rally, you were not allowed to take communion. You were no longer Catholic. And that was happening years before the Holocaust really kicked in. The documents admitted as evidence in the Nuremberg trials after the war said clearly that the Nazis planned to eliminate Christianity. They wanted to wipe it out. And they killed millions of us. I'm going to mention again, although this is an infographic that's about the Maximilian Kolbe, and it accurately notes that 3 million Catholics were murdered for the crime of being Catholic by the Nazis. That actually happened, but again, I will note that quite a few Lutherans and even quite a few members of the really weird semi-Christian Jehovah's Witness were also murdered, and they were all murdered for refusing to give up their faith. So right off the bat, when I know everything I know about St. Max Kolbe, and this guy pumps out this vicious hate narrative, I'm sorry, I see no reason for any decent person, whether they're Catholic or Protestant or Jewish or Hindu or even fucking Muslim, to give this essence of thought he lies. And he lies in the most nasty and hateful ways imaginable. And that's what he does.
What he's going to do is basically repeat Hitchens' old lie about the Concordant being the first treaty or agreement the Nazis made with anyone. Presents it as a friendly pact between pals instead of an attempt at damage control between enemies to further the anecdotal crap about Hitler being a Christian.
Yeah, there's a lot wrong here. And what's so wrong about it ultimately is that you can tell this man is not confused. This man is a professional atheist. Go ahead and look. He's been doing it for a while. He gets money for this. He's a professional atheist preacher. He's not in this because he truly cares about this. He's in this for the cash. And he's in this to hate people and to stoke hate against people.
Oh, but he's also... he pretends to care about the homophobia and misogyny and all that.
Well, why? Yeah, right. Like atheist regimes don't have a long record of persecuting, torturing, mutilating, and killing gays, because they do. All right, guys, should we? I didn't even introduce everybody. I'm sorry. Let's start again. Tonight we have our secular theist friend, White Engine. Good to see him all the time. Or see him again. He's in all the time. You're always welcome, Engine. Also joining us, and go check out his YouTube channel. He's only just starting it, but he's getting some good stuff on there. Also joining us is Philosophy Tiger, who I have officially ceded my crown as meanest man on the internet to atheists to him. The filthy, disgusting, gender queer, weird, green tiger, Protestant filth, Philosophy Tiger. Say hi.
Hi, I'm the abomination in the room, everybody, and I'm glad I'm here.
You have not called me a filthy papist bastard yet. I'm hurt.
You filthy papist bastard!
I feel better. And also, one of my filthy papist bastard friends, also a member of the Red Pill Religion Project, like Tiger. How you doing there, Buckley, you Catholic fool?
I'm doing well, Max. I'm doing quite well.
Good to see you, brother.
I am looking forward to taking apart this video that Essence of Thought put together, mostly because he has a British accent, and people with British accents tend to be seen as more intelligent, which is probably which I'm going to guess that most of this guy's audience is not British but American, and
especially when he uses big words and pretends he's smart.
Oh, really? Yes. You think Englishmen with a certain accent are a little more intelligent than the rest of the human race, do you? Yeah, Americans actually fall for that shit a lot. So do Canadians. They hear some English bastard with a slightly, with a somewhat lilting accent, and they think he's more intelligent than he is. Another one who gets away with that is Sargon. You know the ones who can't get away with it? They've got some kind of working class or lower class accent. So, for example, if you ever listen to, let's say, David Sherratt, who I like, by the way, but he's got more of a working class, lower class accent. So does, I'm losing it. But only certain British accents do that. And I'm pretty sure he's enculturated his because he pushes it a little bit much. But anyway, should we go ahead and give this a listen?
Let's do it.
All right, the first segment is a little long. It's about 3 minutes, 1 minute 31 to 4:31. Let me know if there's a sound problem, guys. We're going to let this go in almost 3 minutes of full glory. Although I do openly encourage from those present fart noises and insults while we play this 3 minutes. Let me know if the sound's good. Here we go.
Hey folks, I have an announcement to make. After having found out that Hitler was a Christian, I, as of today, am declaring myself an atheist. Yeah, right.
As an ex-Christian who came to be when they, as a young Christian, began to question the story of the Bible, both from an ethical and empirical standpoint, I'm not really interested in your faux reaction upon discovering the facts that Hitler was indeed a Christian. I'm more interested in how you can say Hitler was a terrible person when their crimes pale in comparison to the supposed crimes of your proposed all-just deity. That is where it's interesting as our reactions differ.
It's so
This
interesting.
little-known historical fact about Hitler had a lot to do more with his political relationship with the church. His speeches often pandered to religious audiences in order to gain some kind of political support. I am
That is
doing
true.
the Lord's work. That's a highly popular quote that critics like to throw at Christians that Hitler actually said.
So from this, we can take away that regardless of Hitler's personal beliefs, everyone should acknowledge the facts that Christianity formed the basis for Hitler's call to action, not just with the war, but also the stain on human.
No, it didn't. It was
How can you-
fool.
How can you derive? Can someone stop? How can you derive that from what he said? From just what he said?
Cannot derive him from what he said, and I invite him to come on a stream here and defend it. I don't believe he can. I don't believe he'll accept, because all atheists are Steve Shives. All atheists are Honey Badger Brigade. All atheists are
Anti-theists.
well, you keep saying anti-theists. I won't give it to you, because I think atheists who won't stand up for these guys and correct them are just as much a part of the problem. But okay, let's go ahead and see if we can get through to the 4:30. We didn't even make it a minute. Let's see if we can get all the way to 4:31 with this. By the way, I'm going to repeat, Essence of Thought, KKK member, communist, Nazi, can't tell the difference between you. But okay.
His more private conversations with only his inner circles. I, of course, refer to the Hitler's Table Talk. Now, Christians like to reference a specific quote stating, "I shall never come to terms with the Christian lie." Our epoch will certainly see.
By the way, he is very selectively citing, and very conveniently for his Christian and Jew-hating purposes, this particular book. But I'll go on.
The end of the disease of Christianity. It will last another 100 years, 200 years perhaps. My regret will have been that I couldn't, like whoever the prophet was, behold the promised land from afar. End quote, as evidence against the very notion that Hitler was indeed a Christian. The problem? This is redacted. This comes from the German to French to English translation of the quote, and each time it has been translated, it has lost some of its meaning, changing the quote entirely. Thankfully, we have the German to English translation at our disposal. This direct and more accurate translation states, and I do quote, "I have never found pleasure in maltreating others, even if I know it is impossible to maintain oneself in the world without force. Life is granted only to those who fight the hardest. It is the law of life. Defend yourself."
That is not how it's translated.
Of the
30
collapse
seconds.
of this idea. It can still take 100 or 200 years. I am sorry that, like Moses, I can only see the promised land from a distance. End quote. As we can see, the redactions change what was clearly a devout proclamation of Hitler's Christian faith and his regrets that, like the Christian prophet Moses, he would never see the world he longed for into an attack on Christianity.
I'm really restraining myself. I really want to.
Hey, guess.
I want to swear less. I want to swear less. I want to be mean less.
Guess
But
who? Where?
I'm going to mute myself and let you all talk, because what a train wreck of dishonesty. Go ahead.
How exactly this British twat with a speech impediment thinks the revised version of that quote from Hitler's Table Talk somehow makes Hitler into a Christian is a mystery. I can draw an analogy between myself and Moses at a metaphorical level, but that doesn't make me a Jew-hating Christian, does it?
Here's the problem with it. Here's the problem. A redaction. When you redact something in a document, it means, okay, if you go into there is a case in point. There's a document that was by the U.S. Senate, where they actually had to redact certain classified information, which means they blacked that out. So, what redaction? What redaction? Nothing was blocked out in the table talks. Nothing. So,
No,
is he talking about a redaction or sorry, is he talking about a redaction or is he talking about a translation?
He had a more accurate translation at his disposal.
Oh, well, his more accurate translation comes from Richard Carrier, so...
What does that tell you?
It's from a website. I believe this website is called the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
The troll organization.
The Freedom from Religion Foundation. It's that's so scientific and objective. The Freedom from Religion.
I'm going to say this right now. As a literature theorist, I would never use that website. I've actually gotten into the table talks, and the second translation that he used is actually inaccurate. The one before it is actually more accurate. The guy lied.
But he's an anti-theist. What else do you expect?
He's using Richard Carrier.
The Ken Ham of atheism.
The Ken Ham of atheism. That's good. That's actually a good one. But I think that was just. I mean, even if he's right that that's the more accurate translation, you can't derive that Hitler was an atheist. Hitler was a Christian from that, because he's just making a biblical allusion.
As much as I can get insultive with atheists on Twitter, I do have 2 master degrees that have actually trained me in this kind of research, and I'll just say with complete authority right now that just the beginning of this video is a complete fucking dumpster fire.
It gets worse.
Oh, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. Oh, and by the way, that I mentioned
I need wine.
I should mention here, by the way, that White Engine, whose new YouTube channel you should subscribe to, he actually did the heroic work of wading through all 23 minutes and 37 of this just to get this stuff for us to respond to. This is so painful. I gotta ask, fans of Essence of Thought, funders of Essence of Thought, what is it that you think you're getting out of this? And why do you think that this twisted pseudo history is doing anything for you or anything to make the world a better place? I just got to ask. I invite you again to come on the stream to talk to us. I don't think you will, because I think every atheist is Steve Shives on YouTube. Okay, 99.9 out of 100 of them. You're too cowardly to talk to us. You're too. I'm sorry. I'm not going to say anything more. Anybody have anything to add, or should I keep going?
He's showing how Christianity is evil. Damn it.
You know what it is? I really, after reading this, I've been reading through this book, which is The Faith of the Fatherless, and I really, when it comes down to it, I just think after reading this that they're trying to come out with, they're trying to project their little daddy issues, toward God. That's it. They have daddy. They have daddy issues. That's it. And why just come out with it? You've had a problematic childhood, and you want a big hug. You know what? Fuck it. I want to trigger them some more. Let's keep going.
All right, let's do this.
I do want to shout out here that we're watching this video, and it's got this guy's face on it, so it acts like we're insulting this guy. And this guy.
His video is a response to this guy.
Yes, I want to make everybody clear that we're giving our historical and historically accurate and easily sourced rebuttals to this guy, Essence of Thought, and we're talking to an image of this man's face, and this man is not Essence of Thought. This man is Essence of Thought, and this man, Essence of Thought, has been doing this anti-Christian hate propaganda, this horrible, hateful, bigoted man, atheist. This is the actual guy we're responding to. He's just abusing an innocent a Christian who's trying to be reasonable by basically lying about what this particular innocent Christian is saying. But okay, so now the next time point we've got off in this train wreck is 6:41. Shall I start it, gentlemen? I won't even ask them. I'm just going to start it here. I'll be a little behind, but let's see a little more of this pseudo history from a cultist looking for money with the sole intent of hurting innocent people, because that's what Essence of Thought is. All right, hang on. Here we go.
Move on to the mid-Renaissance, and need I bring up Shylock? The fact is, all of this left a lasting impact, and anti-Semitism barely lessened in Europe over the next several centuries as each region went through cycles of anti-Semitism, which the church was always front and center to cash in on, since they were thought to offer spiritual protection from the dark forces, including the Jews. If you deny this, you deny so much of European history that I could only pick a couple of examples to highlight in this video.
Oh my gosh. How many
certain nations outlawed open practice of Judaism, or how they were secondary targets during or after numerous wars and revolutions. This is not hotly disputed history. This is very basic stuff. Now, I understand that you are an American, but if you want to cast doubt on what someone else has said, then I, as well as others, will expect you to do some basic form of research.
Which you haven't done, you hateful. Sorry, somebody else talk at this. I'm sorry, I was about to call him a toffee-nosed fop, but I don't think he's a toffee-nosed upper-class fop. I think he wants to be a toffee-nosed upper-class fop. But anyway, go ahead. Somebody say something.
Here's the thing that when it comes down to it, he brings up anti-Semitism, but here's the problem: is that even though anti-Semitism did exist in various nations, the problem is he forgets a lot of anti-Semitism was very, very micro in nature. It wasn't macro. It wasn't over all the nations that happened. It happened at city level. Usually, at most, maybe a county level, or as in Britain they call them a shire. This guy is so this guy misrepresented. He exaggerated what actually happened in history. He also forgets that. He also forgets that there are many times in history, such as when you actually had like Geneva, where Jews were able to worship pretty much freely. So this misrepresentation of earlier history just doesn't work. And another thing that we also have to keep in mind is that we have a letter from Adolf Hitler from 1919, which means very, very, very young. He was anti-Semitic. And another thing we forget. Here's something else that we forget. Remember Faith of the Fatherless? When you bring up Hitler's childhood, what really influenced him to be as abusive as he is the fact that his father was an abusive piece of shit. When you take away the idea of Hitler and what he did, and go to his childhood and look at the shit that he went through when he was an innocent little baby to his teenagehood, his adolescence. He went through a lot of crap because of his dad. His dad was very, very abusive. How do you think that won't mess up somebody, and how do you think that won't influence them? There's more influence from that abusive piece of shit toward Hitler than pogroms. God.
Well, yeah, there's actually
It doesn't excuse what he did, though.
Oh well, yeah,
but when you have a screwed up upbringing, it's going to screw you up. That's all. It's not an excuse. It just is what it is. Go ahead.
It's a fact.
Well, I would like to reference a book by Rodney Stark entitled "Bearing False Witness." It has an entire chapter on anti-Semitism and how most of it for church history is exaggerated. Between the years of 500 and 1096, there was only one event of anti-Semitism documented. That was when a mob killed several Jews in Clermont in southern Gaul. There was no other such incidents during this time, and the church condemned that one act. If you go on,
did heighten up those who in the Black Plague was blamed on the Jews at one time.
Okay, I also want to bring
guys, please don't interrupt me. I would also like to point out that the church has a pretty consistent record of being against that. There was several popes that called out people who blamed the Jews on the Black Plague, and then there was even one pope that declared that any Christian that spoke the blood libel was to be excommunicated. So so Christian anti-Semitism is often over-exaggerated, basically.
Let me make the point, and I want to add that Christian anti-Semitism is a thing. And the only thing I would mention also is that atheist anti-Semitism is also a thing. In fact, I would say that Essence of Thought, your anti-religion view is as evil as any Stalinist or Nazi, because, I mean, really. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Anybody?
Yes,
we can't. But you go ahead.
So, I want to the one of the most authoritative works based on the most up-to-date documents. Which released that we have, is called Adolf Hitler: The Definitive Biography by John Toland, which his last name is spelled Toland. John Toland's Adolf Hitler. This book right here gives you a good source of information, and not even this guy claims. This distinguished book does not claim that Adolf Hitler was a Christian in the sense that this Essence of Thought even claims. So when you talk about research, he talks about research, I'm going to tell you, it irks me so much, because I intensely studied this stuff, and I've seen it from the primary sources, that Adolf Hitler was not a Christian. He was an occultist with an agenda. Anyways, I'm gonna shut up right now, because I am about to rip his head off.
Contrary to what
I need to add something. I have to interrupt. I'm trying to let people go. But in my interview with Borden Painter, which I'm trying to bring up on the screen right now, just so people see it. I'm having trouble pulling it up now.
Hey guys,
I'm sorry. But in my interview with
for 2017,
Borden Painter,
we're talking.
He actually goes into John Toland. He goes into John Toland, and I wanted to warn you, not argue with you, warn you that Borden Painter actually, I believe, if I'm remembering right, in his interview, calls out John Toland as a pseudo-historian who dabbles with questionable sources. So I'm just going to put it in there. I'm not attacking you, but Gordon Painter, who by the way is one of the most distinguished historians in the world, did call out Toland as a questionable source. So I'm just letting you know that. I'm not saying you're wrong, because there's a lot to read when it comes to Nazis, and there's a lot to learn when it comes to Nazis, who, by the way, weren't that different from communists and hated Christians. Should we keep going, guys, or did anybody have anything they wanted to add?
Contrary to what the guy that British Geek is responding to is implying, Hitler was not an atheist either, and we can't pretend that the Christian tradition of anti-Semitism didn't lay the foundations for the Nazis.
I disagree.
I'm ready to argue with you, though, Matt. Let me make my points, and then Buckley can make his points. Christian, first off, Hitler did declare several times himself to be an atheist. Now, let's be clear. Hitler was crazy and changed his mind a lot, but he did declare himself to be an atheist.
Absolutely.
But of course, he also declared all kinds of other things, and he was into the occultism and the spirit of
He even confused himself.
Yeah.
He even confused himself with God.
Yeah, he was into all kinds of occultism, and in fact, I think I have an infographic on this, but let me see if I can find it real quick. I'm not sure if I can or not. I have.
In the end, it doesn't. In the end, it doesn't really matter. The guy was a fucking nut.
No, because it does matter. Because his entire inner circle, he and his entire inner circle, all of them during the last 10 years or so of the most crazy years of Hitler's regime, all of them, from especially during the last 6-7 years when it was at the most crazy and brutal, and he finally kills himself. All of them were either avowed atheists or avowed occultists. All of them. Oh, here's the infographic I like to use to show that.
I want to also mention something.
Them, there were no Christians in Hitler's inner circle at all. They weren't allowed to be there. They were purged. So if you look at names like, Goebbels and Alfred Rosenberg and Bormann and Himmler and Hess and any of them, he actually for the SS and all of his elite officer corps, anybody who went to church, anybody who was a Christian was out. Of course, any Jews were out too, and he was surrounded by nothing but occultists and atheists, and that's just the reality of who Hitler was.
Nazis' fascination with the occult wasn't made up as a plot device in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah. Here's something else I want everyone to know is the term Aryan race, as we understand it, doesn't come from Hitler. It comes from Helena Blavatsky's Isis Unveiled Volume 2. And that right there, when I saw that in her writings, I was amazed. When I read the context of it, I realized what Hitler was actually trying to do. What he was really trying to do is bring out a new age of mankind, based on the ideas of Helena Blavatsky. It's very interesting.
You want to push through?
Literally, well, we can push through. I do want to kind of get into this. It's very important, I think, for secular moderns to realize that the spiritual is alive and well, and still is, even right now in our current politics. We see Satanists, we see Luciferians, we see Christians, we see Jews. Spirituality is part of politics and always has been. And by the way, atheists have always been in the mix. Do you guys want to keep going? You want to jump ahead?
Let's keep going.
All right, so we're going to go to 754. We're going to go to 754 to 807, which isn't too long. So I guess this is going to be a gut punch. Let's see.
Backwards. Even if Hitler had not been Christian himself, as evidence suggests rather plainly, he still adopted Christian rhetoric to rally the German people behind him to justify the Holocaust and pacify dissent.
You lying sack of shit. Oh my God. Oh my God. Atheism is a hate movement. Essence of Thought proves it. Essence of Thought, come here and prove to me I'm wrong. Go ahead, guys.
We have We have plenty of attestation from Hitler's best friend, Joseph Goebbels, who was also his chief propagandist, as well as Rudolf Hess and Albert Speer, that all agrees that Hitler was vehemently anti-Christian. Even his private secretary, Martin Bormann, used to goad Hitler with quotes from some anti-Nazi preacher or priest and ask when he was going to destroy the churches, and Hitler would rant about how he would do it when the war was over. Strange sort of
Now-
Christian, don't you think?
Yeah, and what's really, really interesting, I'm gonna find that book and send the link to Max. But when you talk about the supernatural history of Nazism, it's you have to realize that there's a lot of things that played into there. The Thule Society, Ariosophy. Those are not the only things that played into it. There was so much that there was so much that occurred. There was Helena Blavatsky. When you also talk about the collapse when you talk about the collapse of the worldwide market at that time, like before World War II, it is amazing how people got into the spiritual. When you talk about the influence of Aleister Crowley and all those other people, everything that started pouring into this, my mind goes numb just thinking at this guy's just sheer dishonesty of omission.
There's more. There's more.
Yeah, and we're going to get to more, and let's see if we can push through to it. But I'm going to repeat this slide again and note again not only Hitler's clearly stated view late in his regime, but here they are, and I'm going to repeat the fact that I invite Essence of Thought to analyze. I don't think he will, but I invite him to. Find me the Christian anywhere in Hitler's inner circle during the last 6 years of his reign. 6 years, so that would be 1939 to 1945. I kind of picked that on purpose, but those are the World War II years. Find me the Christian anywhere in his inner circle. Find me the Christians anywhere in his running his concentration camps, running his intelligence services, running his military. Find me one during the entire last 6 years of his reign, where most of the Jews were killed, where most of the atrocities were committed. Find them for me. You can't. They don't exist because he purged them.
Yeah. And I want to make very, very clear, to be honest, with history, with historical sources, before hot mic, before Hitler. Okay, so there were actually moderate Nazis before Hitler went radical. There was actually a certain point in history where I can't remember exactly when, but there's a certain point in history where there's a lot of ambiguity, and Hitler could have gone either way. He could have gone radical or he could have gone moderate. He went radical. He purged the moderate Nazis that were telling him, don't go after the Jews. Don't do this. If you do this, it'll hurt our economy. He got rid of them, and he installed these radical people in. The ones that are in that slide right there are what he ended with. No one that is a Christian that is truly a Christian, would install those type of people.
Well, he's going to get to the no true Scotsman fallacy later.
Oh, yes, the no true Scotsman fallacy.
Should we get going?
Get going.
Certainly.
Let's do this.
Let's stop at 8:30. 8:30 at 10 minutes, so let's do it.
The Bible calls for genocide repeatedly.
Liar!
Perhaps one of the most infamous cases being the slaughter of the Midianites in Numbers chapter 31.
Liar!
And the intention of this was a total purge. So much, in fact, that when members of Moses' army took slaves, he asked them, quote, "Have you allowed all the women to live?" he asked them. They were the ones who followed Balaam's advice and enticed the Israelites to be unfaithful to the Lord in the Peor incident, so that a plague struck the Lord's people. Now kill all the boys and kill every woman who has ever slept with a man, but save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man. End quote.
I want to. Can I jump in there because I've
No, let him go on. Let him go on.
Oh no. Okay.
Let him talk.
Genocide,
45
even though
seconds.
the virgin girls were spared to become sex slaves, to be raped by the Hebrews at their leisure. I say this
Bullshit.
because of the heritage at the time. The Hebrews only cared about the male lineage. They had no understanding of
Wrong.
Jacob with his cattle in Genesis chapter 30. Therefore, to uproot the family tree was to slaughter all men with a
What
certain
a
name
fucking
or
moron.
tribe.
Oh my God.
This idea of genocide changed as understanding towards
I need brandy.
but the general principle
I have
is
beer.
the same, and as we can see from here and elsewhere, genocide is entirely biblical.
Fucking
You-
absinthe.
Filthy, lying piece of shit. Even in the few cases where you see in the Old Testament orders of slaughter made, it's wrong to call it genocide, because even if you read them literally and in the most negative way possible, they're still not genocides, because you're usually talking about the killing of a few hundred people. And that's just a start. I'm going to mute out and shut up now and let Philosophy Tiger ass rape you in front of everybody, you filthy liar.
If you would have actually if this guy would have actually read the current research going on with ancient Middle Eastern literature, which includes Old Testament literature, there's a rhetorical device that is a common thread within this, including Ugaritic texts, which is the closest we have, the closest language we have. Basically, it is ancient Hebrew's sister language, except it's in a cuneiform, and instead of an alphabet. Basically, there's a thing. The rhetorical device is called hyperbolic victory speech, and that is very common. And so, basically, hyperbolic victory speech would have been very common to the Old Testament because it's a Middle Eastern text, you motherfucker.
Normally, in wars outside of Canaan, the women were spared, but because these women had seduced the Israelites, they had to be killed. Killing every male among the little ones would end the Midianite nation, and girls without sexual experience who were not involved with the sin of Baal Peor were allowed to live and marry Israelite warriors.
You want me to give you an interesting take on this that is not understood? This is even a men's rights perspective if you want, but I will give it to you. Here's how it actually went. Usually when there was a war between tribes, and you'll find this among non-religious tribes as well as religious tribes, you'll find it among the Muslims, you'll find it among the Jews, you'll find it even still occasionally among the Christians. You would get small, poor people who were living in primitive conditions, right? Like a spear is a good weapon for them because they're not that sophisticated, and they get into a fight and they kill each other. And you call the Elamites or the Midianites or whatever, you're frequently talking about a few dozen people or maybe a few hundred being killed. And here's how it really worked. You took one tribe and you killed all the men and you took the women. Well, what that actually means is that if you were a woman, you were the lucky one, because if you were male, you'd just be killed. And if you were a woman, at least you'd have a chance at survival and some kind of decent life, because it was just kind of assumed that the women are not have to be protected. And then, again, the males, they would kill them so that they would not come back and avenge their fathers. Now, that's all very primitive, and actually, if you bother to look through the Christian message, you'd know why, from the Christian perspective, the Christian considers this all not the way to live. And Christians are not supposed to do this. We're supposed to look at these ancient tales as allegory, metaphor, or having a message for us, but we're clearly not supposed to do those Old Testament things. It's pretty darn clear that we're not supposed to do them. We're supposed to draw lessons from them. And by the way, I know more than one Orthodox Jew, including rabbis, and they'll tell you that the Jews, while they read it very differently, still also say this is not what you're supposed to do as a regular basis. And tell me why, as an atheist, I shouldn't wipe out my enemies and kill their sons and take their women. As an atheist, tell me why it would be wrong for me to kill you and take your woman.
And Bible bashers always bring about the keep women for yourselves thing, and they automatically assume sex slavery. I'm like, dirty mind.
What they assumed was that women needed to be protected and needed to be brought in and not killed.
Yes,
like the men.
That is what the Hebrew language actually. When you go into the Hebraic language of the text itself, talking about them bringing in the young women that were not defiled. The way the language reads is there is no forced sex or anything like that. They bring them in, they give them food, they give them shelter, they allow them to mourn, they allow and also he might even go out. Why did they shave their heads? It's to remove lice. It's to sanitize. There is a sanitation process that has to happen. Because they're not going to.
Yeah, I would say that it's just kind of like whenever I see them complain about how sex slaves, they're reading into the text something that wasn't there in the original or in the plain English.
Yeah. This is well, the thing is that this is called what he's doing is a thing called eisegesis. Eisegesis is reading something foreign into the text. Exegesis is a lot more there's a lot more work to do an exegesis, because one, you have to go to the original language. You have to work with the grammar. You have to tackle what the history is. You have to tackle what the literary devices are. You have to tackle some of the rhetorical issues that are in the ancient texts. And like I say, it's when it comes down to hyperbolic victory speech, which is very common throughout the Old Testament, it does not entail. It really does not entail that you wipe out an entire tribe. That's the reason why in the New Testament you have Canaanites, even though it says wipe out all the Canaanites.
They conveniently like to forget that. They conveniently forget that.
In case anybody's missing it, the word he's using is exegesis. It has nothing to do with Jesus. It's exegesis. It's how you read the text. Just throwing that away. And by the way, I'm showing up Essence of Thought's face again because I don't want this guy that Essence of Thought is responding to get beat up because of the way that we're going after Essence of Thought. Essence of Thought, the main question I would ask him is this. Let's presume that your claims of a genocide in the Bible are correct. Which they aren't, by the way. In fact, your claims for genocide in the Bible are inherently dishonest, inherently stupid, inherently ideological, and inherently hateful. But the fact that the Bible has stories which, have people, have the Jews ordered to kill people, you're usually talking about a few hundred, maybe a few thousand at most. The word genocide was created to cover things that happened in the 20th century, which were specifically as regards to not just the Jews, but also what was the Armenian genocide, the Pol Pot, Cambodian Khmer Rouge genocide, the Stalinist genocide, the Maoist genocide, all atheist genocides, by the way, every single strinking one of them. The word genocide was the word genocide was basically created in the late 20th century to describe killing millions of people with the explicit goal of destroying that entire race. The truth is, it's inherently dishonest to look at the Old Testament, which is talking about primitive tribes still using rocks and spears, as their weapons and frequently wiping out another tribe of the Midianites or whatever.
They're killed because of the shit they're doing, not because of their race.
And there were a few hundred or a few thousand of them at most, and it was usually a case where the Jews were like either Jews live or Midianites live, either Jews live or Elamites live. You're capable of understanding that. More to the point, and it's a bigger question, essence of thought. From an atheist perspective, what is your moral basis for saying that genocide is wrong at all? Because I want to hear what your moral basis for condemning genocide is. I know what mine is as a Christian. I don't think you have any moral basis at all to condemn genocide, except that it makes you feel bad. I'm also willing to bet that if I scratched you hard enough, essence of thought, come onto a stream, I dare you, I could get you to admit that you personally would advocate genocide in the right circumstances. I believe that Sargon of Akkad would advocate genocide in the right circumstances. I think Alison Tiemann would. I think Bionic Dance might. I think Godless Engineer probably would advocate genocide in the right circumstances. T.J. Kirk might. I think atheists are prone to genocide, and the last 100 years have shown us that. I want to know what your moral basis is, sir, for even condemning genocide in the first place. I know what mine is. I think you have no basis to condemn it at all, and I want you to prove me wrong. What is it? It would hurt people's feelings if you killed all their relatives and friends in their whole city? I think you got no basis to condemn genocide at all. You might even think genocide is a good thing in the right circumstances. Tell me I'm wrong. Shall I go on, gentlemen?
Go on.
All right. I know one thing. Will we get to all of this before we're done? I don't know, but we're going to keep going. Let's see. What I have in here is 10:12 to 11:14. So let's see. Essence of Thought continuing, pretending that he's giving some essential thought to us. Let's see what we get here.
First, and perhaps most common, is the Christian's attempts to declare every dictator of the 20th century an atheist to show how ethically void atheism is. This is even though atheism isn't an actual thing. It's an
liar!
We can
bullshit!
How Hitler Stalin would form the Russian Orthodox Church to justify his actions.
Let me at him. Let me at him.
Such as now, unify themselves.
Please stop.
No, let me rant, please. Let me rant.
All right, I'll stop. I wanted to go another. What?
Oh no! I gotta rant. If you go to the Nietzsche dictionary, look up atheism. It is considered it's called a positive assertion that there is no God. If you go to the atheist edited Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, it is the proposition that there is no God. If you look up the word lack of belief in a God, symbolize it. Yes, symbolize it, meaning I believe that P. Well, basically, you have negated belief, which means the negation distributes to the entire statement, which means it goes not belief, not P, which means it's ambiguous, which means the definition of atheism right there is absolutely shit. Absolutely bullshit. Which brings us to the fact that one more. That brings us up to the one more thing, that atheism being defined as the positive belief there is no God. The positive assertion there is no God is the actual definition that was used before Antony Flou's presumption of atheism. God, this guy is stupid. I'm done.
Well, no. Let me go beyond stupid, because I don't think he's stupid. You presume that he just is clueless and doesn't know what he's doing. I believe, and I invite him on here, not that he'll take it. I believe that he's not stupid. I believe, and he can tell me what, if he's wrong, if he'll ever come on here, which I don't think he will, because it would cost him too much money to talk to me. The actual fact is that non-religious, Christian, Jew, and Buddhist hating, and by the way, Buddhism is naturally spiritual and is not secular. Buddhist hating, Jew hating, and Christian hating dictators atheists, or at least Buddhist, Hindu, and Christian hating dictators killed more people in the 20th century, including Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, Adolf Hitler, Chiang Kai-shek, Vladimir Lenin, Hideki Tojo, who is often missed because, by the way, World War II Japan was a secularist, anti-religious regime, and Pol Pot. I'm sorry, but add up all the atheist killers of the last 100 years and the combined death toll from Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and every other religion combined is less than what these atheist bastards did. And no, by the way, as a former atheist myself, I note again, I don't believe at all your lack of belief claim, Mr. Essence of Thought. In fact, I think you're a liar, Mr. Essence of Thought, and you believe a whole lot of things that come from your atheist ideology that are specifically rooted in your atheism because you believe things only atheists believe. Predictable things. So you're full of shit.
Go ahead.
Like,
one of those things that atheists believe is that atheism is a lack of belief.
Theism.
Shannon QQ says that Essence of Thought is a really nice guy. Shannon QQ, I got to tell you, my dear, I think less of you than ever that you are willing to speak that way of this filthy, hideous hate monger. This man is no better than a KKK member, and I mean it. And by the way, if you're a fan of his, Shannon QQ, you sweet lady, you're no better than a KKK member either. And I mean it. No, you're really no better. You're no better than a Nazi, and you're no better than communist because you're willing to sit and listen to this hate-mongering filth that is no better than KKK filth, and you're willing to make excuses for it, little girl. I think much of you right now. You heard me. Go away, little girl. I don't even want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to hear what a nice man this filthy bigot is.
Relax.
I'm done. Yeah, all right. Okay.
Yeah, I want to make.
You have more to say.
I have one more thing to say. When it comes down to it, Shannon, your atheist history is a history of bloodshed. That's the reason why I call you blood cultist. Now you know. Good riddance. There's a reason why I muted you.
No, I'm tired of excuses being made for supposed nice people. There's nothing nice about Essence of Thought. I have a Christian child, and my Christian child now faces being beat up on a regular basis from atheist fuckheads like this that you defend. Oh my God, I've had enough of them. These people are as filthy as any racist. They really are. And oh, he's a nice guy. I don't want to hear it. I've talked
to very kind and nice sounding anti-Semites and communists before. They will flatter you in a conversation. They will say nice things, but the fact of the matter is that what they say is false, and what they believe is evil.
And what they believe is not just evil, it stokes hate. And by the way, Essence of Thought stokes hate for a living. Stoking hate for a living is also what Godless Engineer does. And I'm not going to back down for it. No better than a KKK member. Shall we keep going? And by the way, I've met KKK members. They can be very nice and even fun to hang out with. Shall we keep going, guys? Let's see. I got 11:24. All right, let's see what we can do. Let's see what we got.
What's the stretch? The fact that the Holocaust is entirely wrapped in a millennia of Christian blood libels against the Jews, the fact that most Nazis were Christians leading and during the war, the fact that the Bible unquestionably sides with the application of divine genocide, or the fact that Hitler was operating off the same morality you were. Which evidence point is a stretch?
It does. Essence of Thought is not a nice man. Essence of Thought pretends to be a nice man while he promulgates propaganda as hateful as anything Hitler actually did while talking about Hitler. Oh my God. Go ahead, guys.
Okay, so it goes back to the thing of hyperbolic victory speech. These are ancient Middle Eastern documents, much older than the Quran, much older than many of them. All of them much older than the New Testament. It's these things are not meant to be read the way these idiots are reading them. These things are meant to be read from an ancient Middle Eastern perspective. And so what is so frustrating is that it doesn't take that much effort to pick up a serious book on ancient Middle Eastern literary devices and get a perspective on how to read the Bible that way. It doesn't take that much effort. And okay, I'm gonna give up because I'm about to rip his head off.
I swear to you, what is happening now? And I hear from Christian after Christian after Christian after Christian. I'm sorry, anybody in the apologia or whatever orbit who's still like, I don't know, they're in their 30s now and they figured nothing's changed. It is 2018 and Christians are getting beat up. And I was like, oh, I don't approve of that. We'll do something about it, because hate propaganda like this, which is hate. By the way, let me note the irony here. This man is talking about Christians spreading anti-Jewish hate propaganda, which has happened. Although, by the way, most Christians get along fabulously with Jews now and are their best allies because we've overcome those things. In the meanwhile, we have these atheists talking like this about us. Christians now in American and Canadian schools routinely get beat up for the crime of being Christians. And I don't want to hear, oh, well, I didn't do that. I don't approve of that. I want to hear, as an atheist, I want to do something to stop Christians from being beat up. I don't want Max Kolbe's son beat up. And if my son's beat up for being a Christian or for reading the Bible or for praying at school, which has happened to multiple Christians I know, including people on this team, beat up, harassed, denied job opportunities, treated like shit. This is happening on a regular basis to Christians in Canada now, and it's happening to Christians in the United States now, and more than one of them is on this team. And when I hear this sort of hate propaganda, this is as bad as the anti-Jewish hate propaganda. And what's worst of all is listening to Essence of Thought, who cannot, in fact, do anything but shit on other people and shit on other people's values, but won't put his own views up for discussion. When you talk about hate, this man is a professional hate monger, but I'm sure he's really nice and funny and fun to hang out with.
I want to.
Of course he is. He has a British accent. Uses big words.
You know, I'm going to say this right now. I'm going to say this right now when it comes down to it. When it came down to it, I'm going to say this. I'm going to make an admission right now. This is a very close to the heart kind of admission, and I take it very serious. I did when I was a teenager. I did harass a Jewish kid for being Jewish, just to fit in with a dickhead. I'm going to say that right now.
Well, you know what? Look,
can I go further, please? Please. And I took it, it bothers me every single day, and that's the reason why I took Judaic studies classes, because I wanted to figure out where I went wrong. You know where I went wrong? And I even told a Jewish rabbi about this. You know what he told me? He said, human beings suck. And you know what? You're human. I forgive you. That was the most beautiful thing I've ever had in my life. You know what? These people that are using lies, sheer lies like this just bother me. In fact, another thing that bothers me is the fact I've talked to Jewish people. And you know what bothers the Jewish people the most is when you use the word Holocaust. And I'll tell you why. It's not because of the word. Because in World War II, every major groups of people around the world, including China, had a Holocaust happen. They call it the Shoah.
Yep.
And the Shoah, yeah. And you know what also bothers me the most is the fact that there are Jewish people that recognize that they're Catholics, Calvinists, Lutherans, people all around that we don't even know where the bodies are anymore. They are lost in the battlefield forever. And you Essence of Thought, want to piss on their graves? You want to piss on the graves of millions of people? Get fucked.
I'm going to repeat a couple of things. First off, I recommend Rabbi Dalin's book, The Myth of Hitler's Pope, which completely debunks most of what Essence of Thought, the rabid Christian-hating scumbag that he is, no better than anti-Semite, completely debunks the notion that the Catholic Church was against the Jews and was somehow complicit in the Holocaust. There was no such complicity at all. It's a myth. It's actually a Marxist myth, but I'll just go ahead and say it's an atheist myth. It's easily debunked. Pius XII saved hundreds of thousands of Jewish lives, even though he was a very serious Christian and had very negative attitudes about the Jews. His Christian obligation was to protect them. The chief rabbi of the Jewish people,
I think the Pope. Yeah, and I also think that I think the Pope before Pius XII, Pius XI, said something to the effect of that we Christians are spiritual Semites, so to be anti-Semite is to be anti-Christian.
And also, I want to bring
up bearing false witness by Rodney Stark has an entire chapter on anti-Semitism, showing that a lot of the Christian anti-Semitism was exaggerated.
I'll even mention, in terms of Rodney Stark's book, by the way, Rodney Stark is not a Catholic, wasn't born one, didn't convert to one. He's actually kind of I think he's like in the magisterial Reformed Protestant tradition like you, Tiger. And so that makes this a particularly good book, Bearing False Witness, because he's not a Catholic and he just goes through debunking centuries of anti-Catholic history, just like this book. And by the way, I want to throw out another recommendation of a movie. Actually, James Cromwell plays Pius XII under the Roman sky. This is a pretty good movie. I really liked it. And it goes into what exactly Pius XII lived through while he was trapped in the Vatican by Mussolini's fascists. Mussolini's fascists who hated him.
Let me get on that later.
There were multiple threats to his life. There were multiple threats to imprison him. One of the things that happened to him is that at one point in time, the Nazis killed a bunch of Jews, and Pius XII, who had by the way, the Vatican ran a radio transmitter out of the Vatican, and it would transmit stuff. Vatican radio, the Pope personally condemned the Nazis for the killing of a bunch of Jews. I think it was on Italian soil, but if not, it was nearby. The Pius XII specifically condemned the Nazis and called them out for that. And the Nazi reprisal was to kill 10,000 Jews for him saying anything at all. He killed 10,000 Jews just to make Pius shut the fuck up. And Pius got the message and got more quiet. And that was one of many things that happened.
Oh yeah, if Hitler was such a devout Christian, then why did he ally himself with a staunch atheist who tried to bring back the Roman Empire?
And you know what's really important too? Also, I know this one is older, but when you want to talk about Christian history, there's a thing called CCEL.org, which is Calvin Christian Theological Calvin College Ethereal Library or something like that. It's a CCEL is a ton of primary sources, tons of the stuff, and when you go to stuff like Charles Spurgeon, the guy himself did not show hatred towards people. The guy himself wasn't even the most fiery guy. The way he got people to understand the Bible, Charles Spurgeon, is through stories. So this guy doesn't even understand. And another thing that the guy should actually read, or I bet he won't, because he's in a little echo chamber, like the little blood cultist he is Philip Schaff's History of the Christian Church, which is online for free. It's 8 volumes. I mean, the Protestant historian Philip Schaff, who is used by even Roman Catholics, gold standard historian for the 19th century, he shows a lot of the stuff that was going on. Was there anti-Semitism that happened? Yes. But to the extent that that guy makes it out to be, no. And then on top of that, for when you talk about 8 volumes of history written by a gold standard historian, to summarize the richness of Christian history, just shows how dishonest this piece of garbage is.
Let's push through.
We've been going a little bit more than an hour, and so I'm thinking maybe we should.
There's more.
Well, I know, but I don't want to be here too long or just fulminating for an hour. I mentioned a couple of movies worth watching. Whether you're Catholic or not, hell, whether you're atheist or not, whether you're Protestant or not, fuck, be Hindu. I don't care. Oh, by the way, did I even mention we have a new webmaster and he's a Hindu? It's pretty cool. But anyway, we do have a new webmaster and he's Hindu. I'm looking forward to it. But there's 2 movies worth watching. Excuse me, everybody. Sorry. Watch the movie Pius XII, starring James Cromwell, which gives you an interesting view on at least the Catholic view of how Catholics see the way the Vatican was during World War II, and everything I just said was true. Pius XII was of course anti-Jewish because he was Catholic and Christian, and he thinks the Jewish religion is wrong and has many critical things about it. Saved hundreds of thousands of Jewish lives. Spoke often about to stop the persecution of the Jews because it was unchristian and wrong, and the punishments he faced, and the many times he was nearly arrested, nearly killed, threatened with being killed, with being imprisoned, with being replaced. There were even plans to replace him with a fascist pope. I mean, holy shit! And another one is Pope John Paul II, which is a great movie starring, you have both Carrie Elways and John Voight playing, the older and the younger, John Paul II, who died, 14, 15 years ago. It's a really good film, actually, and historically accurate, and goes into the fact that, when he was growing up in Warsaw, he had Jewish friends, including a best friend who was Jewish, an Orthodox observant Jew, his whole life. And what he went through, John Paul II, went through in Poland, trying to protect his Christian faith, trying to protect his Jewish friends. It's beyond offensive to just sit there and